Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridhari. Yasodandana Janaranjana. Yasodandana Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridhari. Yasodanandana Praja Janaranjana. Yasodanandana Praja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridhari. Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Prabhupada Stotara Sata Shri Shri Bhadis by grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Nanta Gauri Vaishnava Vrindi Ki ISKCON BBT Founder of Charity by grace Srila Prabhupada Ki. Oh, glorious is symbol devotees. Oh, glorious is symbol devotees. Oh, glorious is symbol devotees. Oh, glorious to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Gaur Premananda. Hari Hari Oh. So we are reading from the Sri Caitanya Caritamrita today. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta-vrinda. So we are reading chapter 17 past of the Adi Leela. It's the last chapter of the Adi Leela. That's the beginning of Lord Chaitanya's first part of his life. This chapter is entitled Pastimes of the Lord in His Youth, and it's rather a strange situation where the next 16 verses have no purport to them, so we'll be reading all of those. But they're a summary of the whole chapter, so of the whole Adi Leela, actually, of the whole 17 chapters. So just before I start, I'll just read the verse before so you get some idea of, put it into perspective. So last Sunday we read Deki Kurante Bhagavate Vyasira Chara Katakahi Anuvara Kari Varavara. Translation: we can see in the scripture Srimad Bhagavatam the conduct of its author, Sri Vyasadeva. After speaking the narration, he repeats it again and again. And Prabhupada says in the purport, just a short purport, at the end of the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 12th canto, the 12th chapter, there's 52 verses in which Sri Krishna, Dvaipayana Vyasadeva, recapitulates Srimad Bhagavatam's entire subject matter. Sri Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami wants to follow in the footsteps of Srila Vyasadeva by recapitulating the 17 chapters of Sri Caitanya Caritamrita's Adi Leela. Okay, so we begin from text 313. Is that right? 313 on the board? Yep. Tate Adi Leela Kari Parichedagana Pratama Parichedi Kalun Mangal Charana Tati Adilila Rakari Pariched Ganana Pratama Paracheda Kalun Mangal Charana. I'll hand it over to the experts. One more. Anyone else? One more? No? Tati, therefore, Adililara of the first canto, known as Adilila, Kari, I do, Paricheda, chapter, Ganana, enumeration, Pratama Pracheda, in the first chapter, Kailu, I have done. Mangala Acharana, invocation of the auspiciousness. Translation, therefore I shall enumerate the chapters of the Adi Lila. In the first chapter, I offer obeisances to the spiritual master, for this is the beginning of auspicious writing. So, someone tell me who the spiritual master was? No. Oh, this is Krishna Das Kaviraj writing. Anybody else? Gopal Bhatta Goswami. Text 314. The second chapter explains the truth of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, the son of Maharaj Nanda. Actually, I'm wrong. You're right. I got it wrong. Thank you. I thought I had a victory there. I lost. Anyway, second chapter explains the truth of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, the son of Maharaj Nanda. 315. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna himself, has now appeared as the son of Mother Sachi. The third chapter describes the general cause of his appearance. 316. The third chapter specifically describes the distribution of love of Godhead. It also describes the religion of the age, which is simply to distribute the holy name of Lord Krishna and propagate the process of loving him. Text 317, the fourth chapter, describes the main reason for his appearance, which is to taste the mellow quality of his own transcendental loving service and his own sweetness. Text 318. The fifth chapter describes the truth of Lord Nityananda Prabhu, who is none other than Balaram, son of Rohini. Text 319. The sixth chapter considers the truth of Advaita Acharya. He is an incarnation Mahavishnu. Seventh chapter describes the Panchatattva, Sri Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita, Gadadhar and Srivas. They all combine together to distribute love of Godhead everywhere. Text 321. The eighth chapter gives us the reason for describing Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. It also describes the greatness of the Lord's holy name. Text 322. The ninth chapter describes the desire tree of devotional service. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself is the gardener who planted it. Text 323. The 10th chapter describes the branches and sub-branches of the main trunk and the distribution of their fruits. Text 324. The 11th chapter describes the branch called Sri Nityananda Prabhu. The 12th chapter describes the branch called Sri Advaita Prabhu. The 13th chapter describes the birth of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which took place with the chanting of the holy name of Krishna. Text 326, the 14th chapter, gives some description of the Lord's childhood pastimes. 15 briefly describes the Lord's boyhood pastimes. In the 16th chapter, I've indicated the pastimes of the Kaishori age, the age prior to youth. In the 17th chapter, I have specifically described as youthful pastimes. Text 328. Thus, there are 17 varieties of subjects in the first canto, which is known as the Adi Lila. 12 of these constitute the preface of this scripture. After the chapters of the preface, I've described 5 transcendental mellows in 5 chapters. I've described them very briefly rather than expansively. Text 330. By order and strength of Nityananda Prabhu, Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur has elaborately described in his Chaitanya Mangala all that I have not. So that's his spiritual master, Sri Nityananda Prabhu. Text 331. The pastimes of Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu are wonderful and unlimited. Even personalities like Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva and Sheshanaga cannot find their end. Text 332, anyone who describes or hears any part of this elaborate subject will soon, very soon, receive the causeless mercy of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Text 333, herein the author again describes the Panchatattva, Sri Krishna, Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivas, and all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya. So that's what we chant. Sri Krishna, Chaitanya, Advaita, Nityananda, Shivas, Gaur. We got to back to Vrinda. A bit different there, but text 334. I offer my respectful obeisances to all the residents of Vrindavan. I wish to place the lotus feet of my head in great humbleness. Last text, I wish to place the lotus feet of the Goswamis on my head. Their names are Sri Swarup Damodar, Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Sanatan Goswami, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, and Sri Jiva Goswami. Placing their lotus feet on my head, always hoping to serve my Krishna Das, narrate Sri Caitanya Caritamrita following in their footsteps, end of the Adi Leela. Om Ajnat Timirandasya Jananjana Salakya Chaksura Militam Yana Shri Guruveda Mahadurugame Paribindasya Skalapati Gatir Muhu Sukripa Yusdanina Shanta Sansulambanam. So, Srila Prabhupada doesn't give a purport, he just summarizes as the author, Sri Krishnadas Kaviraj, did. So it's very hard to elaborate on any one particular one of those verses, because you can go down the rabbit hole very easy, because there's so much involved in there, it's vast. I'll reiterate this a couple of times, but if you do want to find out more about the pastimes in brief, Srila Prabhupada wrote this book right early on called Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. He wrote this in 1968 in the same mood as he wrote the Krishna book, because he didn't know how long Krishna was allowing him to stay on the planet for. So he wanted the whole world to find out about Lord Chaitanya. So he wrote this in brief, which is very interesting. It's got everything. It's summed up. The Caitanya Caritamrita is a highly interesting book to read. It's not available here, but I know where it is. I can get it for you. If you have $10, I can sort of distribute it freely to everybody. It's well worth the read. So the author of the Caitanya Caritamrita was Krishna Das. So maybe I can talk a little bit about him, how the Caitanya Caritamrita come about, and then if you're all still sort of got your eyes open, I've got another lovely story about the purport of the Caitanya Caritamrita in a few minutes. So Krishna Das, he was a poet Vaishnav, and he was born in Katwa, and he had Gaunitai deities in his house. So one very important factor was that his father, I haven't got his name, I remembered it, but his father actually witnessed when Lord Chaitanya took sannyas in Katwa. As we know, Lord Chaitanya was Nimai Pandit. And then after he took initiation, Vishwarapuri, you were always wondering what we call Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, because he wasn't Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then he didn't take initiation until sannyas initiation, then he was named Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. So I just read recently that an appropriate name for the Lord at that point in time was Vishvambar, right? So Vishvambar, he went to Katva, went away from Mayapur, and he took sannyas there, and Krishna Das's father actually witnessed that. So it was a very, very strong Vaishnava family. So Krishna Das was very much into the worship of Gaur-Nitai, Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, and he was a very devout follower of Lord Nityananda because actually Lord Nityananda was his spiritual master. So one point in time he was worshipping for a very, very long time this exalted devotee by the name of Minikatam Ramdas. He came to visit Krishna Das, and he was a servant of Sri Nityananda Mahaprabhu, and he was ecstatic. He was a bit of an avadoot, so he was so ecstatic that he'd sort of forget all protocol. If somebody was paying their obeisances in front of the deities, he'd jump on top of them and go, Nityananda, Nityananda. So he acted in a sort of really unorthodox manner, but he was just full of ecstasy. So because he was a servant of Lord Nityananda and Krishna Das was a disciple, in all probability he probably was also a disciple, initiate of Nityananda Prabhu, so they were god brothers. So that was very nice to have him visit, and it is said that he'd chant the name of Nityananda with such force that everybody would just be jolted, and they would really feel the reaction of the love of Lord Nityananda. But then a little disagreement arose in that house. So Krishna Das had that house and he was worshipping the deities. He was very ecstatic. But then one particular Pujari, he was worshipping the deities and he disregarded Minikaita. He didn't actually recognize him because in his heart he felt that Lord Chaitanya was superior to Lord Nityananda, that they weren't equal. So the example was always given of a candle lighting another candle, like in the Brahma Samhita said, departure eva hita santaram abhapetya dipayate vivita eta samana dharma, just like the Supreme Lord is like you light one candle and you light another candle. So this is the expansions of the Lord. They're all expansions of the Lord and they're all of equal potency. So Minikatam Ram took a little bit of offence and he called him Romaharshana. There's a Romaharshana here. And this is going back to Krishna Leela, this Romaharshana devotee did the same thing. He was speaking and Balaram came into the assembly and he didn't know this Balaram. Of course, Krishna and Balaram were brothers. Balaram, Supreme Personality of God, he just kept on speaking when everybody else paid their obeisances. So Balaram chastised him. So he said that. So then that didn't sort of finish. Then Krishna Das's younger brother, he also made some comment that actually not Lord Nityananda is not the same as Lord Chaitanya. And so Krishna Das had an argument with his own brother and he got very upset at the fact that, Lord Nityananda is his spiritual master and these people are offending Lord Nityananda. So that night when he was asleep, Lord Nityananda actually appeared in his dreams and said, never mind, it's time for you to move on. There's something special waiting for you in Vrindavan. Take shelter of Gopal Bhatta Goswami. So immediately, even though Krishna Das was such an old, aged person, he made that trip to Vrindavan and he took shelter of the Goswamis, particularly Jiva Goswami and I think Gopal Bhatta Goswami. And so he was there, but he had experience because he was in Katwa and he was in Bengal. He had experience of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes as Vishwambar and as Nimai Pandit. And not only that, Raghunath Das Goswami, another Goswami, just come from Jagannath Puri after Lord Chaitanya passed away, and he knew so much detail about Lord Chaitanya's last 18 years and his other 6 years before that when he travelled around. So that 6 years where he travelled around is called the Madhya Leela. So this is the Adi Leela, this is the start, right? The Madhya Leela is when Lord Chaitanya travels around South India. It's such an ecstatic read, the Madhya Leela, and it's also summarised in here, Chaitanya. I expect to make at least a dozen sales. So, and then we have the Ancha Leela, that is last 18 years. So, as we know, then Raghunath Das, he was a servant of Swarup Damodar, was one of the intimate associates of Lord Chaitanya. So Raghunath Das filled him in. He told him so many stories and tales about Lord Chaitanya. So that point in time, Krishna Das Kaviraj, because he was very poetic, he'd already written, I believe he'd written some books already. It was, that's why Jiva Goswami gave him the title of Kaviraj, poet, right? Then he became, from Krishna Das, became Krishna Das Kaviraj. So they asked him to compile the Caitanya Charitamrita, and he goes, "What? I'm so old I can't see." He had cataracts in his eyes, could hardly see, but he could stay awake. That was one good thing, you know, very, very Krishna conscious. And so at that age, he started to compile the Caitanya Charitamrita. So when you read the Caitanya Charitamrita in the beginning of each chapter, nearly every chapter he said, "I'm old, I'm feeble, my hand is trembling, my eyes have cataracts, I can hardly see it. Somehow by Krishna's mercy I continue on with the translation of this book," right? So this was like, but he got the benediction of the Vaishnavas. So he always said, because of benedictions of the Vaishnavas, I can try and relate this book. And this book was of paramount importance because this and the other book, Chaitanya Bhagavat, which was written by Vrindavan Das Thakur. So Vrindavan Das Thakur, who was he an incarnation of in his past life? A bit of a joust here, huh? Srila Vyasadeva. Okay, so and also we have Krishna Das. So who was Krishna Das Kaviraj an incarnation of in Krishna Leela? The Manjaris. The Manjaris. So, two Manjaris. One of them was Kastura Manjari. So there's the Manjaris and the Gopis, right? So Radharani is the first and foremost of all the Gopis, who were the intimate, loving mates, loving servants of Krishna, who fulfilled all of Krishna's desires even before Krishna desired it. And all the Gopis had the Manjaris. So the Manjaris were these prepubescent girls that went and served the Gopis. So they'd be picking flowers for the Gopis and helping them with all the other different tasks. And they were getting the same ecstasy as the Gopis were getting. So in their service to Krishna. So they served the Gopis. So a lot of the great saints that we have in our disciplic succession are described to be as Manjaris. So Krishna Das Kaviraj was said to be Kasturi Manjari in his last incarnation in Krishna Leela. So he also came directly from Krishna Leela. So they were the main instruments in introducing this, introducing Lord Chaitanya to the world. So in the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th verse, text 32, it says, Krishna Varnam, very important verse that we chant all the time just to put our philosophy into perspective. Krishna Varnam Tvisa Krishnam Sangopanga Straparsadam Yakde Sankirtana Prayer Yajanti He Sumedasa. That translates that in this age of Kali, so intelligent persons will participate in the congregational chanting and the worship of the incarnation of Godhead, who constantly sings Krishna's name. And he's actually Krishna himself, although he's not blackish. His complexion is not blackish, he's still Krishna, and is constantly accompanied by his associates and confidential companions. So that's what the sloka of sort of a bit of an aberration. So intelligent people will worship the Supreme Personality of God in his form, which is not blackish, that means he's yellow, he's golden colour in the mood of Radharani, but he's Krishna himself, and he's accompanied by all his associates. So this is why we have the Panchatattva. Someone asked that, what is the Panchatattva? So there's his confidential associates who are parts of his expansion, direct expansion. So Lord Nityananda is actually an expansion of Sankarshan, and in Sankarshan always is there to provide for the Supreme Lord in all of his incarnations. So when Krishna came, he came as Balaram to provide and look after Krishna, and so in this particular instance he's come as Lord Nityananda. So, and then Sri Advaita, he's expansion of Sadashiva, who actually is also a part of Mahavishnu, as is Lord Balaram, so they help with the creation of the universe. And of course we have Gadadhar, who's like the Shakti of, is the Shakti of Radharani. And then the last one, Srinivas, is the perfection of a pure devotee. So then when we say that constantly accompanied by his associates and confidential companions, so there's so many jiva tattvas that are purified souls that come with Lord Caitanya. So he's got this entourage that comes with him, and it's there to spread the love of Godhead. And this description is actually given, summarized in the Caitanya Caritamrita. So there is a really wonderful story about the glories of the Caitanya Caritamrita. I love this story. Prabhupada told us in the early days that it's also about another personality, that this personality was by the name of Srinivas. Who's heard of Srinivas? I don't know if many sort of new people have, but I'll describe a little bit about him. That he was the son of Gangadhar and Lakshmi Priya, and he was another very, very auspicious family. So I think they were rather aged people. They never had a son. And then they went to Jagannath Puri and they got blessed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that they were going to have a great son. And this son was Srinivas. So when Srinivas was growing up, it was just a little bit outside, somewhere in Orissa. He took shelter of a great devotee of Chaitanya called Narahari Sakur. And then Narahari Sakur instructed him, go and meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and take shelter, go and meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri. He was there. So he goes to Jagannath Puri, and Mahaprabhu had just gone. He just departed this world. So then he took shelter of Gadadhar Pandit, is one of the Panchatattva, right? He was living in the Totagopinath temple, and he wanted to read the Srimad Bhagavatam. So Srimad Bhagavatam those days was written on the palm leaf in ink, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to go to Totagopinath temple and discuss Srimad Bhagavatam with Gadadhar Pandit every day. And they would be so ecstatic they would start weeping and their tears would be spraying out everywhere, and they'd cover the Bhagavatam, and the Bhagavatam was written in ink. So all the pages were smeared. So he was trying to read the Srimad Bhagavatam, but he couldn't read it because all the pages were just smeared with the tears of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gadadhar. So then he decided, Srinivas decided, I'll go back to where I come from, Narahari Sakur, he's got a Bhagavatam. So he went back, picked up a Srimad Bhagavatam, went back to Jagannath Puri, and then Gadadhar disappeared in separation from his beloved spiritual master. So he had the Bhagavatam, but Gadadhar was gone. So then he went to Vrindavan to take shelter of the 6 Goswamis, right? So he visited all the holy places on his way to Vrindavan. By the time he got to Vrindavan, Rupa and Sanatan, the principal Goswamis, they disappeared also. They'd left the planet as well. So this is where we have that song that Srinivas wrote, Yaya Nila Premadana, where have all the Vaishnavas gone? He enumerates all the Vaishnavas gone. And he was so sad. I was just going to beat my head against the rock, right? This feeling of separation. But then at that point in time, still in Vrindavan, Gopal Bhatta Goswami and Jiva Goswami were there, and they took him on board. They gave him shelter because he was the next generation, right? So we have the 6 Goswamis, we had that generation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he's the beginning of the next generation. He was born around 1510, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left the planet in 1534. So he's in his 20s when he went there, and then he made 2 close friends, also great Vaishnavas. Anybody know who they were? His contemporary friends? Anybody? And Shyamananda. So they were great friends. So at that point in time, there was a great upheaval in Bengal because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left, and then when the spiritual master leaves, there is all sadness and remorse, and what are we going to do now? And you can imagine the Supreme Personality of Godhead leaving, so all the devotees of Bengal and Jagannath Puri were so attached that they could hardly function. So it was decided, and they just had, they had some history of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but they didn't have the elaborate philosophy of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, because the 6 Goswamis had written it all out in Vrindavan. They've been writing prolific books now. Most of them had passed away, but the volumes of books were there, and Jiva Goswami decided, okay, let's take these original manuscripts over to Bengal and inspire all the devotees with the philosophy that's been written here. So they compiled all the literatures, and it said they had the Bhagavatam, amongst other literatures, predominantly the Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Caitanya, Caritamrita. And they had this big trunk of books, and Caitanya Caritamrita was on the bottom for some reason or other. And so they started to proceed from Vrindavan to Bengal, which is a long trip. It's like 1,000 kilometres, and they had to do it on a cart with oxen. So there was the 3 friends and 10 bodyguards and 10 guards and 2 drivers taking the bullock cart to Bengal. So somewhere along the way, they came to a province which was called Gopalpur, and it was a kingdom of Varna Vishnupur, a very strong dynasty with a king there called King Birambir. So what's very interesting is in those days, just like we have the Tweed Shire, and we have the Ballina Shire, and we have the Caboolture Shire, or whatever. So each of these sort of like shire sort of provinces were kingdoms, and there was a king in each one. So that was the system in those days. So every time you came to a new shire or a new province, you'd have to deal with the sort of fresh set of circumstances, the tax collectors and the king. So this particular king, his name, as I said, was where is he? King Birambir. So he was a Hindu king, but he also had a few dacoits on the side. So dacoits means robbers. So they plundered the pilgrims who were on the pathway there, and he'd get some of the share of the booty. So these dacoits picked up on this big party with this big trunk and 10 soldiers. So if there's 10 bodyguards, that means that something's really precious in there. So they were following the party. And then one night when everybody fell asleep, Shyamananda and Srinivas and Lokanath, they all fell asleep, and the guards fell asleep. These dacoits took the case and ran off with it, right, and took it to the king. And of course, when the devotees woke up and the case was missing, they were just mortally grieving. They were lamenting so much, where has the case gone? What are we going to do now? So Srinivas had the presence of mind. He sent Shyamananda and Narottam off on their mission. And of course, we know that Narottam was going back to his village of Katuri, and he started a whole movement there. But Srinivas stayed behind. He followed the trail, right? So then this big trunk of books arrived in the king's presence. He opens up the trunk, and instead of seeing gold and treasures, he was conceiving, oh, this is going to be big. He opens, there's a whole lot of books. What are these? And then he opens them up and he realized, oh, I've robbed some sadhus. So he was very, very much afflicted because he was a pious king. So that night he had a dream that the person who was in charge of the books was going to manifest in front of him. So anyway, Srinivas followed the trail and he actually ended up in the palace a couple of days later. And he comes into the palace and there's this professional reciter reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam in front of the king. And Srinivas stayed there for 2 weeks and he listened to this reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam. And at one point he stood up and he said, that is very nice, but that doesn't speak about what is the depth behind the Srimad Bhagavatam. And then he started to speak about the Srimad Bhagavatam in front of the king. And the whole court was just overwhelmed by the depth of philosophy that Srinivas produced, because actually Srinivas was brilliant. His spiritual master, he took shelter of Gopal Bhatta Goswami as his spiritual master. This is where I got mixed up in the beginning. But Narahari Sakor said, I've taught you everything, you know more than I do. So he's very quick to learn. So his profound, profound realization, Srimad Bhagavatam, the king was overwhelmed and he realized this is the person of my dreams. So he surrendered to Narottam, surrendered to Srinivas, and then he gave him the books back, and lo and behold, this is the whole purpose. Sri Caitanya Caritamrita was on the top. So Srila Prabhupada said this is the essence of the Sri Caitanya Caritamrita, that it's the topmost Vedic literature. And another really important point was that the king then got all the scribes, because they had to write it down by hand, right? So only scribes knew how to write Sanskrit in those days. So got every scribe in the whole province to start translating volumes and volumes of these books. So when Srinivas left, he had a whole pile of these books. They expanded them 10 times or however many times. So then he was able to give the books out a little bit more freely in Bengal. So in those days, there was no printing press, so they would write these down. So, where am I going here? So yeah, so then over a period of time, these books were distributed and they started to get lost. And then in about 1850, when Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who wanted to revive Krishna consciousness through Lord Chaitanya, he was looking for one of these books and he couldn't find them anywhere. It took him a long time to find them. So there weren't many around because they had to be written by hand and they were sort of becoming a little bit obscure, but he found one and he read it and he was so elated by the content of the Caitanya Caritamrita. He went looking for the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya and he found it in Navadvip, and it's at the yoga pit, which is only about 1 kilometre from our big temple, and we go there all the time and take shelter of it. There's so many beautiful mats. If you want to get away from the maddening crowds of pilgrims that come to our place, we just go there. There's a little bit more shelter there. And we can do our bhajana there and see that Nimtree where Lord Chaitanya was born. So not only did he discover that, but he printed some books. So there was some printing available, and he printed this little book called Life and Precepts of Lord Chaitanya, and he sent it to all the Western countries that were there in the world, to the university. So he sent some to the United States, some to England, and lo and behold, he sent one to the Macquarie University in Australia. So one devotee, I won't mention his name, but he found that book, The Life and Precepts of Chaitanya, was in the Macquarie University in the library there, and he pinched it, right? So anyway, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, so it was there, it made Australia. So we can say that this printing of the books, that was like the first book distribution that took place. So then, of course, after Bhaktivinoda Thakur, his son Bhaktisiddhanta started to used printing presses to churn the books out in mass for the population of India, and later on for the, telling Sri Prabhupada take it to the world. So that was called the Brihat Madanga. He said, you can play the Madanga, play the beat, and everybody dances, but the books are like the Brihat Madanga. They're like the great Madanga. They go everywhere and they resonate with everybody. So that was the real expansion of the process of Krishna consciousness. So the Caitanya Caritamrita was always the essence there. So we're just running out of time. I've got a whole lot here. But I just want to talk about the meaning of this Caitanya Caritamrita. So Caitanya Caritamrita. So the word Caitanya means living force. And Prabhupada describes in the introduction of the teachings of Lord Caitanya, he said, living force. So living force means that it moves, that you and I, we can move, right? But this lectern can't move, this table can't move because it has no living force, right? So that is a very important point, because sometimes you'll come across impersonalists, which we call the Mayavadis, and the Mayavadis will say that it's all, that it's all one. Oneness is the oneness is the silence, the stillness, and they use the example of a clay pot, right? So they say when a clay pot is empty, you tap it, it makes a lot of sound. When it is full, it makes no sound at all. So that is the sort of fullness of spiritual bliss. But you say, well, you can't actually compare a table which has no living force to a living entity which is moving, and it can move. So therefore, your example is irrelevant. So it's not all one. So Caitanya, it means living force, also means activities. Charitra means character, and Amrita means immortal. Caitanya Caritamrita. So the living force got character and it's immortal, right? So that's the name of the book here. So Prabhupada then summarizes, really makes a statement that there is no activity without any living force. So he elaborates that us, we living souls, we have force, we have this activity, but we're not Amrita, we're not immortal. So Caitanya Caritamrita means character of living force in immortality, we're immortal. So the material conditioned souls, we have this living force, we have activities, and we're immortal by nature and constitution. So the soul is immortal, right? But the material condition we're in actually, we've been put in this, it doesn't allow us to express that immortality. These qualities, they can't be displayed because we're all covered over by the three modes, goodness, passion and ignorance. It's just like tightly bound like ropes. It's just said guna. Guna means rope. So we're so bound up by these modes, we can't escape. We're in there. But the Lord is never under the influence of three modes. That is the difference. So Bhagavad Gita also describes that Krishna is the creator of everything, the three modes of material nature, 712, Yashaiva, Sattvika, Baha, but he's independent, he's not under the modes. So a living entity like us, we have a tendency to succumb to the modes. We have that living force, but we succumb. We sort of get under the influence of the modes. So God he's never influenced by the modes. He never comes under control of material energy. It's his energy, he created it all. So that is the difference between us and the Supreme Personality. So it's very easy to understand. So therefore, we develop that relationship through the Supreme Personality, and we imbibe that spirituality. And it just said that if you get an iron rod at a fire, you dip the iron rod in the fire, the rod becomes really red hot, right? So then you take it out and it loses glow. So we've got to keep dipping the rod in the fire, and that's through the association devotees, reading the teachings of Lord Caitanya, and taking shelter of the spiritual master and the parampara. So I've just about run out of time. Thank you very much for all being here, paid attention. One quick question or comment or elaboration, correction? Oh, no microphone? A microphone? We have to go to hear the announcement of the big Harinam that we're having tonight. Try and get all the people to come and Harinam tonight in Surface Paradise. It's going to be very, very exuberant Harinam. A lot of people are coming, and try and bring a few people yourselves. Come yourselves, hopefully. Okay?
Thank you, Prabhu, for that whirlwind tour of Caitanya Leela. Just back on that initiation, I've never read or heard anywhere that Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami even met Lord Nityananda. And my understanding, at least from reading the CC, is that in that dream that he had after the offence of Minikatam Ram, Lord Nityananda appeared there and sent him to Vrindavan. So then he describes him as his initiator, spiritual master, because he sent him on that journey. But it seems at the end of each chapter he offers his respects to Rupa and Raghunath. I think there is instructing spiritual his Siksha gurus. So, because Narottam Das Thakur was the last known disciple.
Yeah, okay. Okay, yeah, thank you. No, I'll just take your word for it because I haven't read anything else about that. Right. Thank you for the information. I think we're all done now. Oh, you got one money? You got something? No. Jai Boy Shilpa.